Rabbi, and welcome to Torah Anytime. Thank you for spreading Torah in the ganze Welt. Tonight's Zera Shimshon is sponsored by Sarah Salt and Rabbi Schoenfeld. The schus of the Zera Shimshon, Rabbi Shimshon Chaim Menachem Nechol, should be a schus for all the sponsors and for everybody who learns this Torah. Should be Bezos Hashem. We should all zeiche to see Hagefen, Atzlocha, Gezind, Parnusa, and Nachas. B'chol in Yoneinu. Ma'ariv Rabbi side tonight is the first of the weeks, the Thursday night of Shovavim. I heard from my Rebbe Zechrenu Levracha, Rabbi Moshe Shapiro, who said over the Shirish of Shovavim, says in places like the Shla Kudosh, the word Shovavim is really a conjunction of 6 different letters. The 6 Parshas of Shemos, Ve'era, Boi, B'Shalach, Yisro, Mishpatim. It's a zman of tikkun for Klal Yisrael. We're going to, Be'ezus Hashem, try through the Shiur of the Zera Shimshon to learn some of the inyanim of Shovavim and some of the power, the energy, the kedusha that's shaykh le'inyanenu, what we can learn from this. So let's begin. Tov Pei Beis in your Zera Shimshon. It's Parshas Shemos, letter Tes. Yeah. The Medrash Yalkut. V'hinei hasne boyer bo'esh. The pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu went to a mountain called Har Elohim. Vayar Malach Hashem Elov. Vayera Malach Hashem b'lav aseish metoich hasneh. And the first vision that the Jewish people, that any Jewish person, Moshe Rabbeinu, saw of the Eibishter in his role of taking Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, in his role of getting involved. This is the first revelation that we're told about. There are many times the Eibishter appeared to the Avos HaKadoshim. There are times that Yosef saw in his dreams which were nevuah. But all of those were to individuals. This is a message for Gans Klal Yisrael. This is the beginning of the journey of Bnei Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu is meeting the Eibishter on the mountain that eventually Klal Yisrael will be Makabel the Torah. It is one Har Sinai. That's where they were. And the vision, says the Torah HaKadosh, is Vayera Malach Hashem Elov Belavas Eish, a flam fire. A flame of fire, Mitoich Hasneh. In a thorn bush. Mitoich Hasneh. Zogt di Yalkut, the Medrash. There are multiple reasons of why the Eibishter revealed himself bidavka in this type of tree. So much so, Vayar v'hine hasneh boyer be'esh v'hasneh einenu ukol. Vayomer Moshe Eren overes amar agoda madua lo yiver hasneh. Again and again and again. 4 times already we mentioned the word sneh. So this must be an integral part of the revelation. Vus epis. Why is this so important? Zokt the Medrash. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sneh has the same sound as the word sinah. Hatred. You know why I'm in the sneh? Because it represents hatred. Which sinah? The sin of the brothers. The sinah of Yosef. Vayisnu oisoi achiv. Bishvil achiv, b'shesonoi achiv leYosef yordu leMitzrayim. The Medrash, the way it's quoted here, says because of the sinah, they went to Egypt. Ubishviloi, continues the Medrash, and because of Yosef, ani nigla besneh ve'agala oisam. It was through Yosef, or through the sinah that the brothers had to Yosef, you went in, and it's through Yosef you shall get out. We've mentioned, as it says, Ga'alta bizroya amecha. You took out bizroya with your arm, bizroya natuya amecha, b'nei Yaakov v'Yosef sela. The children of Yaakov and Yosef. Very funny lashon of David HaMelech. Yaakov v'Yosef. Memachta shutfis of Yaakov and Yosef together. What's their shutfis? Number one. V'hu ma'inyan zelazeh. What is taka the pshat of the sinna? What's taka the pshat of the geula, the golus and the gula? V'o my maisi raya mikra the ga'alta b'zroya mecha shegola b'schus Yosef. Halei b'kroksiv b'nei Yaakov v'Yosef sela. Imken lo yischus Yosef l'chudei. Wasn't it also Yaakov's schus, not just Yosef? U'ma'inyan zema posik v'ina snei barabesh. What does the burning bush have to do with b'nei Yaakov v'Yosef sela? It's Yadua. In a different pasuk in Tehillim, it says, Sholach lefonov ish, le'eved nimker Yosef. Sholach lefonov ish. David HaMelech writes that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu planned for Klal Yisrael to go to Mitzrayim, sent in front of them an ish. An ish usually means a person who has a man of stature. Eish is a lashon of fire. Eish, boyer be'eish. Eish, ish is the name of a man that has a yudaleh, the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in him. Like Yadua, ish v'isha has the shame of Hashem. But it's not just stam, the name of Hashem. A person sometimes called Odom, al shem hu Adomo. And sometimes a person called Gever. And he's called Enosh. He has different names. Anoshim, Enosh. And sometimes he's called Ish. Here, David HaMelech, as he refers to Yosef HaTzadik, Sholach lefonov Ish, le'eved nimker Yosef. Zok de Medrash, Yosef godar atzmoi min ha'erva, v'nigdaru kol Yisrael al yodoi. Yosef HaTzadik was successful in his mission. He was sholach, like a shlichus. What was his job? His job was to conquer the Yetzer Hara. Veleche Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer Hara of Arayis. Bidiyuk, the Yetzer Hara that Mitzrayim was so stooped in. Bidiyuk, the Yetzer Hara of Zenus, bidiyuk that Yetzer Hara, asher b'sar chameim b'chamerim b'sorim v'zir masusim zirmasam, that Yetzer Hara was exactly what Yosef HaTzadik had to conquer, and Rabbi Say, he did it with no support. He did it all by himself, just with him and whatever his father had given him, the support that he got for 14 years when he learned with his father, biyachad b'chavrusa, for those 14 years, as a 17-year-old who, if anybody remembers, 17-year-olds are, Yitzi. Right, okay, Ginnik gesagt, Beseder. It's tough years. Right, being a teenager is nisht pushet, okay? So having said that, Yosef is there with every opportunity to do an Aveira, where the Aveira is running after him in Eishes Paitifar, where she's not letting up, and he has the koyach to fight against the Yetzer Hara and to conquer it. As we've mentioned many times before, he conquered it not only by staying away, but even when he found himself in the most uncomplimentary, when he was in the room with her, und sie schon, and hat schon ja getracht von Tonan Aveira. Hat schon ja getracht. That means to say the Yetzer Hara had already affected him and grabbed a hold of him. And he still wrestled out of Yeni Yetzer Hara. And he still conquered that Yetzer Hara. Steht in Chazal that Yosef HaTzadik created the opportunity to battle the Yetzer Hara for Gans Klal Yisrael. In Sefer Asara Ma'amoris, from one of the Mekubalim, explains, we mentioned this in Zera Shimshon a few years ago, the fact that they had to conquer Yosef, they had to grab him, sell him as an Eved, meant that they owned him. So that all of Yosef's accomplishments, Masha Kana Eved, Kana Rabbi, that in a etvos ma, in a certain way, every one of Yosef's accomplishments, because his brothers had captured him and sold him as an Eved, so they were able to cash in and they were able to receive all of his accomplishments. That it wasn't, that didn't mean they have to do it in a mean way, but what happened because of that was that Al Yedei Zeh vos Yosef ad Giton was therefore a credit, or they got a koyach from that. My Rebbe Zechron Berger for all the men that lived in Mitzrayim for 210 years, and all the Yiddish women that lived in Mitzrayim for 210 years, achas hoisa upirsa makra. There is only one instant in 210 years, vasayid mitagoita, other a goy mitayidene, that there should be an intermarriage, or not even a marriage, just even an act of living with a goy or a goita, achat haya. One, in this week's parsha. The Mitzri with Shlomit Bas Divri. Achas hoyu pirsam akro. How in the world did Klal Yisrael, being avodim to Mitzrayim, get such a strength, have an inner strength, that when they saw a Mitzri to say, Nein, ich will nicht, fui, not for me. Where did that come from? Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik. This, Rabbi Sai, is where the energy of Shovavim comes from. This is mamish the pshat of where the kedusha of Shovavim comes from. As we've said many times, another 2 minutes of introduction, then we'll get into the Zera Shimshon. Yeda parsha, every parsha of the Torah has its kedusha and its energy. Every parsha has its own kedusha. Parshas Shemos, Parshas Bereshis, the koyach of the Torah that has been infused into each parsha is according to Parshas Vayetze, Parshas Vayishlach. Klal Yisrael is mekabel the entire Torah throughout 52 weeks of the year. Week after week after week, Parshas HaShavua. Chazal teach us, it's brought down in Halach, in Shulchan Aruch, that when Yidden take out the Torah and they read the Torah, there are three people that have to stand around the bima. Three people. A Gaba, the Baal Kaira, with the person who gets an Aliyah. Shabbos has 7 Aliyahs. Why are there 3? Shteit Nalocha. One is Keneged Klal Yisrael. The person who gets an Aliyah. He's Keneged Klal Yisrael. Then there's the Sarsur, the person going back and forth. When Klal Yisrael was at Har Sinai, there was the Eibishter and came down to give us the Torah. There was Klal Yisrael to receive the Torah. And there was Moshe Rabbeinu going up and down the mountain to broker the deal, to go up, to go down. Yedish Shabbos, every time we take out a Sefer Torah, Klal Yisrael as a minig, 3 people stand around by Kriyas HaTorah. One Keneged, Klal Yisrael, the person who gets an Aliyah. You get an Aliyah, you're empowered, you're being mekabel yena parsha the Torah. Parshas Hamon, Parshas Oz Yosher, yena koiches come down on that Shabbos. That's the koyach. You have the Baal Kaira who goes back and forth. And get a load of this. And then you have the Gabbai, the one who gives out. He's the one who thinks he's God. He decides who gets the aliyahs. But the emes is a shteit in Chazal that he has that role. He's the one who doles out shaft. He's the one who decides who gets what. And in this threesome of who's what, that's the Gabbai. What does that mean? That when they take out the Torah and the Baal Korah is reading, you are now listening to Yena Parsha and you're being mekabel that Parsha of the Torah. Meaning, chutz from the fact that we have zmanim, kedushas hazmanim, which are Pesach, when we go out of Mitzrayim, mitzad kedushas hazmanim, Shavuos, which mekabel the Torah at Har Sinai for the Yom Tov of Shavuos, which happened on that day, 50 days after Yetzias Mitzrayim, Sukkos v'chulei. Chutz from the kedusha that there is in kedushas hazmanim, that those manim are holy, there's a bazundere kedusha mitzad the Torah kedusha alein that talks about these things. That kedusha comes to us every Shabbos. Parshas Shemos, Parshas Zera, Parshas Boy, Parshas B'Shalach. Every parsha has in it, the parsha has in it its own kedusha. Now, having said that, versteht man that the koiches of this parsha comes out on Shabbos. So, Rabbi Sai, on this week's parsha, when we read Shemos and we read how Klal Yisrael was in Mitzrayim, and we hear that Klal Yisrael, thanks to Yosef HaTzadik, were able to, he infused them with a DNA of not having any shaykhs to any Mitzrim. Because he, when he was there by himself, as the Melech of Mitzrayim, as the one who was being mashpia, was able to conquer himself and create all the koiches of Mitzrayim during that tkufa. He was in charge. He was doling out all the food. He was the mashpia. The hashpah, gashmi, was for the Egyptians. The hashpah, ruchani, the spiritual hashpah. He created a cocoon for all of Klal Yisrael to stay in Mitzrayim, keiner soll nicht wollen, and nobody should want to have any shaykhs to any Mitzri or Mitzris. Achas hoiso pirsum akra. That's the koyach of this week's parsha. So these 6 weeks of Yetzias Mitzrayim, where Klal Yisrael leaves their golus into Geula, carries that energy week after week after week. And you stelled Su through these weeks. That's this koyach that we can get. Now, Zuk the Herlik Zera Shimshon, let's talk about this medrash. V'yesh loymar, the kavanas ha-medrash ilataretz lama davka nigal HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe b'snevel b'mokam acher. The medrash, of course, is teaching us why did the Rabbeinu Shalom reveal himself in a sneh? Why not elsewhere? U'metchila metaretz dat sneh uloshen sina shekeshem shegolos Mitzrayim ba ba'avoy mechiras Yosef. According to this, Mitzrayim was a source. Unfortunately, it was a place where Klal Yisrael had to go because they sold Yosef there. The Shvatim gormu la'aviyem lis abel chov bei shonim. There were of the 12 children, 10 out of the 12, Binyamin not, Yosef of course not, but the other 10 were all involved with the hatred and all involved with the sale. Each one of them caused Yaakov Avinu 22 years of tsar. Therefore, what's that? Reuven was Lamaisa, he was part of the group. Lamaisa, he wasn't there for the Mechira part per se, but he was there for the capturing. What was? Mishum hochi nischai v'golas chav bei shana lekol echad masar hashvatim. Every shevet contributed 22 years. So therefore, they should have been there for 220. They were supposed to be there for 400. Minus 190. Why 190? Because of Vayimoris Chayeyim. For sure. In addition to that, Elefi shemesu bechutz la'aretz kol asara nismayit yud shanim. There were 10 years that was nismayit v'loi nishtar begolas kim redu, which is 210. Meaning, because each one died in chutz la'aretz was a slight kapara. So 1 year of their 22 years was taken away, but the rest of them Klal Yisrael had to pay for those 210 years. That's why it was besneh. Now, why is Hashem in the sneh? Because Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, finished. They got the sinner, whatever there was, the sinner has been accounted for. They've been 210 years, they've paid the price, it's time for them to leave. That's A. Avol, there are other reasons, that's the only reason, says the Zera Shimshon, of why they left. Avol alzeh kosha, the dilma hagolus umetam acher, the kosov halev aryeh, b'shem gali roza, shebeshvil shehevi Yaakov, loshen targum b'toira. Vayikra lo yibben legar sadusa. Vayikra lo loven, yegar sadusa. V'Yaakov kar legal 8. Let me explain. This is a real mikubel dike yisoid. He's telling us like this. Lavan and Yaakov made a treaty. They met at a certain spot and they built a pile of stones, of which Yaakov said, this stone is called Gal Eid, and Lavan called it Yegar Sahadusa. If you look in the Lashon of the Chumash, the words Yegar Sahadusa is not Lashon HaKodesh. It's Targum Lashon. It's Targum. It's the only place in the Torah that the Torah has a foreign language in the Torah. And that, Chazal say, is the Torah, Cholila, Aloi Aleinu, being kafuf, being subservient, in a sense, to Koiches Hara. The Megala Amukos writes, I heard this from my Rebbe, in Shnas, Reish Yud Gimel, Lebayis Sheni. Yegar is Reish Yud Gimel, 213. In the 213th year of Bayis Sheni, that's when Talmai HaMelech forced Klal Yisrael to be metargim the Torah liyavanis. That's when the Hisgabrus of Yavan, a different language, Targum, entered. Like my Rebbe would say, Soid Hashem liyireyav. Only a person who had Ruach HaKodesh could say such a word. But Lavan's achiza, Lavan's poison in the Torah, the fact that the Torah has to mention his words in a foreign language, that he had kavanah to identify this treaty between us. You call it Galed. I'm going to give it my name. And this treaty is supposed to be that I'm not coming to you and you're not coming to me. Aber zok lavan, ich zok dir. I'm calling this Yigar, which means that at one point, I'm going to see you. I'm going to come back and get you. Lavan's koyach went as his definition of the treaty, of the separation between the two, was a definition of Yigar, biz ich zug. That's the way I'm calling it, and that was mashpia, that the Bunim should be able to have a shlita over the Torah. Says the Zera Shimshon, Yaakov Avinu is partially responsible for this, because he made the treaty, and he, although maybe he should have protested more, but Yaakov Avinu has to take responsibility. Look at what the Zera Shimshon says. V'Yaakov goram zeh, she'amar la'achiv liktu avanim v'yiktu avanim v'yasu gal. Make a pile, make a mound. Ubishvil zeh bo Yisrael v'zuksta. Gal is Loshen Kodesh, Avada. Ubeshvil Balt. Ubeshvil ze bo Yisrael begolus Mitzrayim. V'zeh ma shekosav hayisu einayim v'ayar v'hino oiches Yishmaelim bo Migilad. Wow, they came from the place called Gal Eid. The beginning of Yosef's entering into Mitzrayim. Yosef, where all of it started, Yishmaelim are coming from where? This Nikuda. Azoy state. Let's go weiter. Dahainu Gal Eid Shekara Yaakov, which Yaakov called it Lema Shekara Loven Yegar Sadusa. V'hu Arami Oived Ovi. Meirav Rabbeisai, when it says in the Haggadah Shel Pesach that Arami came to destroy us. Arami Davka, Loshon Arami, Yored Mitzrayim, Onus al pi Dibur. Which Dibur? Dibur Shel Arami, meaning the Lavan's poison of Lavan being able to define the treaty between us and them. You know, when you write a treaty with a goy, you make peace with them, if it's really called peace. And they have a chance to break the peace treaty. That's not a peace treaty. If you give them the opportunity that they can define the laws and they can go ahead and break it, Vosra peace treaty. Yaakov, who went into such a treaty with Lavan, and Lavan uses a definition, a terminology where his verter are written in the Torah, state in the Mekubalim, which is in the Torah, Vatam lefi shaloshen targum meyuchad lechitzoinim. V'zeu she'amar shem malachi asharis makirim b'loshen arami. They don't understand this loshen. V'im kein tam zeh hodra. Period. So oibazoi Lavan, who was able to poison, so to speak, or to bring Klal Yisrael to Mitzrayim, it's Yaakov Avinu's fault because there's some targum in the Torah that's shaykh to another language because of Yaakov. Who fixed that up? Who is metaken that? Says the Zera Shimshon Yosef HaTzadik. How? Yosef HaTzadik was shomer his bris. The Rebbe hat gesagt, so dort zwei brisim. It's brought down in Sefer Yetzirah. There's bris hama'or and bris haloshen. There's a bris, the words for bris, like milah, and the word for words, which is milim, which are also beloshen milah, a word. And the concept that there's two koiches that are mashpia chayim to the world. You could be a physical, biological father, and then vishinantam levonecha elu hatalmidim. You can teach people, and you become their tata, because you influence them. The Gemara says in Bab Metzia, Daf Lamed Gimel, Avedas Rabbi v'Avedas Aviv. Your Rebbe lost an animal, and your father lost an animal. And you only have the wherewithal to return one of the animals. Which one do you return? Says the Mishnah, Avedas Rabbi Koidim. The Rebbe goes first. You know why? Aviv moilid oisai to this world. Daddy brings him into this world. Daddy gives birth to him in this world. The Rebbe, by teaching him and giving him chaye oilam, gives birth to him in the next world. This world's life is limited. The next world's life is endless. The Rebbe is a tata. Vishinantam levanecha. Elu hatalmidim. The Rebbe has to be nice to the Talmud to be a good tati. Not my. It's kibbud Rabbi.
But also gives you schar the next word.
Avad, of course, every mitzvah gives schar. Putting on tzitzis also gives you schar. But the question is, who gave birth to you? There's moilid. A Rebbe is moilid. A Rebbe is called vishinantam livanecha. They're called the children of Moshe and Aharon because Moshe taught them Torah. There are two brisos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made, says the Sefer Yetzirah with Avram Avinu. Bris HaMa'or, which is where the children come from, and bris haloshen, which means that there's a koyach hoylada through the way a person speaks, that he can influence and be moiled and make also children that way. Yosef HaTzadik says the Zera Shimshon was misaken the pegam haloshen of his father Yaakov Avinu. B'nei Yaakov Yosef Sela. Let's see it inside. Zuk the Zera Shimshon u'mishum hochi saim ha'medrash b'shvilo ani ligna b'snek keloimer af im toimer tam acher. If you're going to say there's another reason for the Golus, which is because Yaakov Avinu was poigim, im kol zeh yuvim tam lama nigla b'sneh. Lefi shebeschus Yosef nigla she Yosef loy rotza ledaber me'oilam beloshen mitzri. Yosef never wanted to speak like them. She'eshes paitifar amra havulanu ish ivri. He was identified as being an Ivri. He was different than everybody else. V'sara mashkin oime v'shami tonu nar Ivri. Shafilu l'shoinenu einoi makir. He's not talking like us. V'oid ba gavril v'limdu shivim loshin k'tei sheyochel ledaber v'nei pari ava chutz ma'oisei pam loy diber. Besides, for that time they had to speak Mitzri, he never spoke that way. Inami chutz ma'lifnei pari loy ha'im medaber. V'zeu v'yom Yosef el ochev ani Yosef Dafka Yosef, Diksiv ki einchem royos ki pi hamedaber aleichem. Listen to the way I'm speaking to you. Ich red vi a yid. I'm not talking to you like a goy. I'm talking to you like a yid. I'm speaking to you the way we speak. Beloshen HaKodesh. V'lechein v'higadetem la'ovius kol kvoidim ahartem aradis ovizeh koloimar. Don't worry about the golus that you were goyrim, that his father, Beloshen Arami, Shechas v'shalom lo'tiyesol gula, Sharei ani tikanti hapegam b'ma sheloi shonisias l'shoinoi. Like we're saying now, Yosef fixed up the tzura of hashpo'ah, to make sure that all shefa that came down to Mitzrayim, whether it was Pegam Abris and whether it was Pegam Aloshen, Yosef HaTzadik, the ganze koima of the Tzura Sa'adam, made sure that Zol Al Zayin, everything loyal to the Bashefer. Va'afa Pisha Yisi Oime B'soich HaMitzrim, V'sar, V'melech Alehem, I never became ruined and spoiled by the Egyptian culture. I lived their life, I lived with them, I ruled over them, but I always stayed like oil that stays above water. I always stayed above them, not allowing myself to be submerged. V'zeu b'shviloi. Now let's come full circle, let's conclude. B'shviloi. Other, it's in the sneh because of the sinah. That's one reason what we got us in there. Ubishviloi aber dezelbe Yosef took us out. Bishviloi ani nigla besneh ve'egal oisam, and I will get them out. Shenemer ga'alta bezroya b'nei Yaakov v'Yosef Sela Keloimar Lefishem b'nei Yaakov nischayvu golas. Afilu, you're going to say that there was a pegam by Yaakov Avinu, which we don't understand, which is way beyond our understanding. Afilu dos Yosef Tikun ubeschusoi nigloi, and because of him, v'zeu b'nei Yaakov Yosef Selo. K'may shepirish Rashi. Now, Rabbi Sai, Eile told us Yaakov, Yosef. Yosef was the one who was a gehiten, who protected and kept all of Toldos Yaakov. Eile Toldos Yaakov, Vasegevein Ein. That's why he came to Urk, that's why he came to Lavan, because his bashert was Rachel. With this Rachel, he could be able to create a child that would be able to be the leader and the protector of Klal Yisrael. V'kach Ava. Avado Lavan at the Mazoy gemacht Leah, that she should come. So it took a while, but eventually Rachel was his wife. Rachel was Akeres Abayis, and Yosef b'nei Yaakov Yosef Sela. Through Yaakov Avinu, through Yosef, all the toes of Yaakov were held pure. That's why Yosef, steht in Chazal, of all the Shvatim, Bereshis is called Sefer Avos. Shemos is called Sefer Habonim. The stories of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are in Bereshis. The stories of the Shvatim are in Shemos. One person is in both. Yosef. Yosef is a kind, aber shaykh to the Avos. Yosef has a Menashe and Ephraim. They're also Shvatim. Yosef has a schus to raise himself up and be a hamshach of Yaakov Avinu, where he can put himself on that level of where he has also the koyach to be mashpiyat the Klal Yisrael. These are the weeks of Shovavim. These are the weeks where Yid has the energy, gets the energy, al pi ha-Torah, al pi parsha seinu, parsha after parsha, where you can cash in and you can get energized by learning the parsha, by hearing the parsha. You know, I'm all a person, you don't realize, you don't feel good. You have a sore throat. You go to the doctor, he gives you a couple of pills. What does he give you? Antibiotics. 2 days later, Baruch Hashem, I feel much better. How did it happen? I took antibiotics. How did it work? I don't know. I just took it. It worked, right? It just worked. Sometimes a person is heavy. He takes a shot, another shot, another shot. Mitamul, he becomes skinny. How does that work? Ich weiß nicht, but it makes him skinny, right? You should know in the Gashmias world it works that way. In Ruchnias it works too. You hear a parsha, you hear the story, you internalize it, it goes into your neshama. It goes into your neshama. You hear it another one, take another pill, it goes into your neshama. Eventually your neshama becomes healthier. It works in the physical world, it works in the Ruchnias world as well. So alle zoiche sein, kol echad ve'echad, to be mekabel, the hashpuas, toives, and the kedusha v'tahara of these week's parshas. Rav Chananya ben Akasha, I'm a Rotzah Kodesh Baruch Hu, L'zakor, says, Yisrael, Leficha, Chibolim, Torah, Mitzvah. Ain't so kaddish, someone has to say? Zachiyuv? Nicht du kein Chiyuv? Das ist so, Schnell mal, Adonai Chofetz, am Anzit, Koi, Yagdil, Koi, Koi, Yagdil.